We always serve up the freshest dashcam videos, but in this episode, we'll also be giving away one of VIOFO's newest dashcams to a lucky viewer. Keep watching to find out how to enter. Lewis was being followed closely by the driver of a black Honda. As he rounded a curve, the Honda driver took the opportunity to speed around Lewis before losing control. The Honda driver went too fast into the curve and slid into a parked SUV. Lewis stopped to check on the occupants, and neither of them were seriously injured. Lewis called 911, but he told us the police never responded. Instead, 2 tow trucks arrived to take both vehicles away. Evidently, the owner of the SUV wasn't home at the time, but Lewis sent a copy of his dashcam footage to one of their neighbors. Imagine coming home and finding that! Shane was taking his son to school when he was waiting at a traffic light. When his light turned green, he waited for a while so the drivers who'd entered while it was red could get out of the way. Sadly, he didn't wait long enough. The driver of a silver Nissan Sentra came flying through the intersection before getting T-boned by Shane's Ford Explorer. Both drivers pulled over to wait for first responders. After police watched Shane's dashcam footage, they gave the Nissan driver a citation and told Shane it was the easiest collision case they'd ever worked on. Fixing his Ford Explorer cost $6,000. Still, he told us it doesn't look as good as it did before, but at least it wasn't totaled, unlike the Nissan. Jake was driving his Mitsubishi 3000 GT when he noticed the front wheel of another car starting to wobble. When the traffic light turned green, he must have sensed what was about to happen because he let the other car get ahead of him. Sure enough, the wheel decided to go it alone, leaving the car to grind to a halt. It was obvious that nobody was harmed, so Jake continued driving. This emitter was headed to a basketball game after work. As he drove past a car turning into a parking lot, another driver didn't see him coming and pulled out in front of him, leaving him no time to react. Our submitter's Hyundai Elantra rolled off the side of the road and into a ditch after striking the Subaru head-on. His insurance provider totaled his car and sent him a check for $8,000, but he told us that wasn't enough to pay it off. He's thankful first responders arrived quickly and that there weren't more serious injuries. He added this final message for our viewers: please be careful when coming out of a parking lot. Chuck was getting on the highway after work when he noticed a Minnesota State Trooper next to the on-ramp. Right after Chuck drove by, he noticed the trooper turn and enter the highway behind him. Moments later, an SUV passed him before merging in front of him, which Chuck thinks was an attempt by the driver to avoid the cops' attention. Thankfully, this little tactic wasn't effective. The state trooper got behind the SUV and turned on his party lights, pulling the SUV over to deliver some instant justice. Brian was pulling a 10,000-pound trailer behind his Ford F-350 when he nearly T-boned a company pickup truck as it flew through a stop sign in front of him. The pickup, which belonged to a local electrical company, didn't even slow down as it barreled through the four-way stop. Brian reported the incident to the company later that day after he got home. He told us the owner called him and apologized, promising to handle the situation. With no way to know what actions they took, we can only hope something like this doesn't happen again. Mateo was on his way to a local pharmacy when a minivan turned onto the road in front of him. He slammed on the brakes and laid on the horn, but he couldn't avoid rear-ending the other vehicle. The impact totaled Mateo's Acura TL when the radiator was destroyed. When he called the police, they told him the Tucson police only respond to collisions involving injuries or hit and runs. He got the minivan driver's information before they left. A few days later, he found out the other driver's insurance provider had found him at fault since it was a rear-end collision. Thankfully, his dashcam revealed the truth. He told us the second his insurance provider sent his footage to the other insurance company, the debate was over. They accepted responsibility, totaled his Acura, and sent him a check that he used to buy a replacement. Mateo still misses his Acura, which he'd had since he was 16, but his dashcam really saved the day. Don't forget that we're giving one away this week. Keep watching so you can find out how to enter. Casey was headed home from the supermarket when he saw a Nissan Altima make a U-turn right next to a no U-turn sign. A few minutes later, he ended up a few cars behind her, headed the same direction. Now, a lot happens here, and the truth is, we have no idea what the Altima driver was thinking or why she did any of the things she did. What we do know is that Casey had no prior interactions with her. Okay, let's continue. As they approached an on-ramp to a highway, the Altima driver cut across lanes to reach it before stopping short. She then got back on the road and sped ahead, possibly thinking the upcoming right turn was another on-ramp. When she got to the turn though, she must have changed her mind because she tried to cut back across into the straight lane. After merging behind Casey, he told us she tailgated him while laying on her horn. Not long after, she illegally passed him in an oncoming lane. Once they'd both entered a roundabout, she suddenly stopped before putting down her window and yelling some choice words at Casey. The two drivers then went their separate ways, leaving us all wondering what provoked this little road rage performance. Mitch was in a drive-thru, waiting patiently with his fiancée Chloe for their turn to order. Evidently, the guy driving the Jeep Cherokee behind them couldn't wait any longer. Actually, rear-ending Mitch's Chevy Colorado was a case of pedal misapplication, which is when a driver means to apply the brakes but accidentally puts their foot on the accelerator instead. Did you know over 16,000 collisions occur as a result of pedal misapplication every year in the United States alone? Thankfully, in this case, there was no damage to either vehicle and nobody was injured. This submitter approached an intersection with a green light where a bus driver was waiting patiently to make a right on red.
Wow.
Okay, maybe not so patiently. The bus driver recklessly pulled out in front of traffic, forcing the Lexus in front of our submitter to screech to a halt and putting themselves and their riders in danger. Our submitter called the local transit office and informed them of the incident, letting them know he had dashcam footage. They had him leave a voicemail with the transit safety office, and so far they haven't called him back. Our submitter guesses the transit office must not care so long as no collision occurred. He also told us he's a huge fan of all our channels, and as an electrical engineer, he can't wait to own a Tesla of his own. This next right on red is even worse. Peaky Fox spotted an SUV driver rolling through a red light and sideswiping a car with the right-of-way. She stopped and provided the car driver with her contact info and told them she had dashcam footage of the collision. The SUV driver was immediately apologetic. Peaky Fox wanted to remind our viewers that if you have a dashcam, you should always stop and provide your footage if you witness a collision. Of course, if you don't have a dashcam, keep watching to find out how to enter to win the one we're giving away at the end of this episode. Alan was waiting at a traffic light behind a Model S when he watched it become a Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
Alan told us this same Tesla driver had been driving aggressively and cutting off other drivers before this happened. Obviously, he's just too important to wait for red lights like the rest of us. This submitter was driving down a road with a lane on his right that was about to end. Suddenly, the driver of an SUV came up next to him before merging into his lane without warning. The SUV clipped the front of our submitter's Toyota RAV4 before the driver slammed on her brakes, nearly causing another collision. Thankfully, our submitter's dashcam footage revealed her reckless driving to the police. Our submitter told us the SUV driver was uninsured, so he'll be suing her for property damage and his legal fees. He left this message for our viewers: put down your phone, pay attention, and learn to drive. Awesome was making a protected left turn when an oncoming driver made a right on red, failing to yield to him and even turning into his lane. Yeah, that's not how Right on Red works. Thankfully, Asim was paying better attention than she was and avoided a collision. He asked us to shout out his sons Ahmad, Hadi, Zaid, and Aram, who all love our channels. Ardor was on his way home after work when he was suddenly cut off by an impatient minivan driver. Even though he hit the brakes, the wet road surface made it impossible for him to avoid rear-ending the minivan. Both drivers pulled over and exchanged information. Thankfully, there were no injuries. He told us he hasn't been able to get a hold of the other driver yet, and if they don't respond soon, he'll be getting the police involved. Check it out! Ardor bought a VIOFO dashcam and he thanked us for the recommendation. We're giving one of their newest models away in a few minutes, so keep watching. Jason is a bus driver who approached and stopped at a red light that protects a one-way road. Suddenly, another driver went around him, running the red light and heading straight into oncoming traffic. When Jason got a green light, which only applies to buses and tractors, he rounded the bend to discover that the other driver was getting served a helping of instant justice. Dennis was driving down an Arizona highway at about 65 miles per hour when he was suddenly faced with a minivan headed toward him in his own lane. The minivan driver had been trying to pass a semi-truck when they ran out of room and took to the shoulder to avoid a head-on collision with Dennis's Toyota Tacoma. Instead, the minivan ran into the guardrail, ripping open the side panels. Dennis also lost control before colliding with the guardrail, causing $2,500 in damage. Dennis mentioned that the minivan driver should have been more careful considering they had 2 passengers on board at the time. Rowan was driving late one night on I-35. He told us it's normal for highway traffic to drive 85 to 90 miles per hour, so when the vehicle ahead of him suddenly swerved around a stopped vehicle, he had little time to react to avoid a collision. An older sedan was parked halfway in the road and Rowan had to stand on the brake pedal while swerving to avoid slamming into it. Thankfully, the driver of the pickup next to him was also paying attention. Now that was a close one. Rowan told us a decade of driving in India taught him to be ready for anything. He wanted to shout out Bhavya for never being afraid of being his passenger, and he said he watches every video we upload. Joe was waiting at a red light after passing a Ford Focus stopped in the road with its hazard lights on. He noticed it began moving again before it suddenly rear-ended his Honda HR-V. After the collision, the Focus driver left the scene. Thankfully, Joe was able to flag down a passing police officer and give her a description of the vehicle. Police located it under 5 minutes later and arrested the driver for DUI. Sadly, the driver was uninsured, but Joe has uninsured motorist coverage through his own insurance provider. He was able to get his vehicle repaired, but it took almost 4 months in total. Jacob was driving down a Washington highway when he spotted the one and only Lightning McQueen. With a nickname like Lightning, I guess we should have expected Montgomery McQueen to be an electric vehicle. Ka-chow! Okay, it's time to give away the first of 3 VIOFO VS1 dash cams. To enter, send a photo of your car to the email address in the description. We'll choose a winner at random and announce them in 2 weeks. Also, make sure you're subscribed since we'll be giving away another dash cam next week and another one after that. And you'll want to enter to win them too.
Wham! Bam, we got a Patreon man. Please support the show.